You're listening to Cinema Snarks. I'm Larry,
And I'm Ren.
and we are going to tell you how we really feel. And today we are telling you how we really feel about Malignant and James Wan's directorial filmography. So, Malignant is now available on both HBO Max and in theaters as part of Warner Brothers' release strategy of 2021. And it is the latest horror film from Mr. Wan himself after not really giving us horror in a minute, even though that is certainly what he has long been known for. But it follows a woman who soon finds herself having visions of a man or entity named Gabriel as he takes out grisly murders on people from her own past. So, Ren, you are
Yeah.
not quite a horror person. You're not adverse to horror, but it's
Yeah.
certainly not been your genre, yes?
Yes, especially not compared to the people that are like, horror is their genre.
Yes.
Yeah. I have
Horror.
been picking up the pace, right in Halloween shows. You need to kind of get a grip on what people like to see in their horror. But I'm more Halloweeny than I am horror, right? Like I want like spooky, scary, horrifying, but also kind of fun. Like that's I need that little touch of fun. Although I will say that this movie does have that touch of fun in it, I think.
It sure
Um,
does.
it's goofy, man. It wasn't like terribly goofy. I don't know. It it was interesting. It was like they wanted to be a B horror movie, but not actually be a B horror movie. I don't know. It's not in this weird spot where it was like campy almost without
Yeah.
being like full on campy. Um
So how'd you feel about it? You're given like this vague feel that you had.
oh I
Like, dislike, where'd you fall?
how I feel it's a weird question. I think I'm in the middle, to be honest. I wasn't like, wow, that was a great horror movie, but I also didn't like hate the experience of, it was like fine. It was fun. It was like, it wasn't like, like Troll 2 is like amazing bad horror, and Malignant is like, it's like a good movie. It's not like a terrible movie, and like the terribleness of the movie is what makes the movie good to watch. This is like also a good scary movie. I think that was what it was, is like it's like a little bit campy, but then the gore is like terrifying. And that the Gabriel is a horrifying creature. That thing is very, very creepy. I think the weird backwards walking thing, it takes that like Asian trope of the like girl walking down the stairs backwards, that sort of like Asian horror style thing, and puts them upright and fighting and like terrifyingly lethal.
Yeah.
So I thought it was an interesting take, although I don't know. Everyone said there was a twist at the end. I saw coming a mile away.
So I saw part of the twist coming. I
Yeah.
didn't I wasn't anticipating how far that twist would go in the weird direction it went. I guess I was expecting more psychological type of rather than a physical manifestation of this twist. With a physical transformation and all.
You're
I
right. I
wasn't
don't think
ready.
I was necessarily expecting the full on physical aspect of
It's
it.
like, oh,
You are
damn.
correct. I
There's a jail cell scene in this film that had me shook, that I loved. I loved every second of that damn jail cell and the actiony horror that takes place in there.
You know what I appreciate? A bunch of women getting murdered by another woman. I don't think you see that enough.
Nope.
Just all these, they're just like, it's the other thing. There's just like random women, right? Like there were these two like asshole women. But then like all the rest are just like these women who got stuck in this jail cell.
Listen, what I love is that one of the asshole women was like sacrificing the others and just like grabbing them and
Yes,
throwing them
throwing
into
them
the
out.
middle.
You're right. That was pretty good.
I lived. I loved it. But yeah, so the trailers were highly misleading when it comes to Malignant, and I think that does a service in getting people in the door. But I also think it's making people hate the film that they got.
They expect something else. Yeah, you got to mitigate expectations.
They
Man.
were expecting, because the trailers make it seem like a possession type of movie. Like, I don't know. And even the beginning of this film kind of has a possession-y feel to it. And it just goes off the rails into a different direction later.
Yeah, it was very spooky at the beginning. It was much more like tense, like jump scares at the very, very beginning. And that tone really shifted like immediately. It was like they just dropped off. And so I've only really seen a couple of his films, but it like reminded me of it wasn't like The Conjuring, which The Conjuring was like all about that like tension building and that moodiness and that spookiness, which I thought The Conjuring was like, it's not the scariest film I've ever seen, but like modern wise, it was like genuinely like tense and like stressful to watch.
Yeah.
This movie.
We'll talk a lot about The Conjuring because I love The Conjuring. So we'll talk a lot about that when we get to his filmography. But
this movie was not stressful to watch. This movie was that's why it sits in a weird horror place, to be honest. It's like it's more like gore action. I mean, it feels appropriate for him. Oh, I've seen Saw too. I've seen all of his first movies. I will say
Saw, once again, we'll talk about, obviously, this film definitely had remnants of his past films. So especially the detective stuff, the aesthetic, and even the dialogue and how it was edited gave me Saw vibes. Like,
yeah, now that I'm remembering Saw, I remember watching Saw and being like, this is horrible. Like, the acting in that movie is just dreadful. They're like writing and everything is not good.
Yeah.
Stop my heart. I love Carrie Ellis, but my goodness, is he terrible in Saw.
And then I would say, I would even argue. I would argue that Damien himself gives me like the third act of this film kind of gives me Insidious third act vibes. Because Insidious is kind of Conjuring-esque. It's rooted more in like a typical, more tense horror film. And then that third act of Insidious kicks in and it gets a little wild. It gets a little bit more fun in its horror. And this film very much does that. It gets like goes ham in its third act.
Yeah.
And I made a joke about it in the reaction I recorded. There for a minute, with her working with the police, it did remind me a little bit of Lorraine Warren, who is like, of course, psychic extraordinaire woman in the Conjuring films these days.
Right.
They've leaned much more into that in this last one, which James Wan did not direct.
So see, as like a nerd person, the Warrens are part of the reason I like didn't really dig too deep in the rest of the Conjuring. James Wan is the best thing that ever happened to those couple of con artists.
I was gonna say they are straight up con artists, and the films make them look much better than they ever did as actual humans, not just physically as people. But
anyways,
yes. So this film, I felt like we got little pieces of Saw and Insidious, a tiny bit of The Conjuring. Like they all kind of merged into even Aquaman in some of the goofiness. You could feel like this is the director that did Aquaman.
It does feel like he had a lot of fun making this film, and that kind of shows through. And I think that's what makes it enjoyable is that you can tell that like he just enjoyed making it. Like he wasn't trying to do something. He wasn't trying to scare us. He was just like, I'm gonna make this film. I got this crazy idea and I'm gonna do it. And it's gonna be great. Look, I got action and it's kind of silly a little bit over here.
I think maybe we should dig into them because I'm not well versed enough in the style of like Giallo horror films, which is like the Italian subgenre of horror.
I have a little bit of that.
So I was going to say, like, I know a little bit about it, but I'm not like the most versed. And you love your Italian everything, so it seems like something fun to delve into. But the influence is definitely here.
So the only thing that like I don't know. It certainly has that kind of camp factor that
Yeah,
the Giallo
yeah,
has. With that, like, so like Suspiria is the like the ultimate sort of
yes,
example, right?
yeah,
And that one is all about like color. That was one of my favorite things about Suspiria. Is it's one of the like, you know, Malignant is a dark colored film, so you don't get that
yeah.
like
No,
bright,
it doesn't.
crazy color aspect of it. And honestly, Suspiria is a lot more focused on just being like weird and uncomfortable, where this one just where Malignant just goes straight into like silliness almost. I don't know if so, so the thing with Suspiria is I think it like it's a little bit goofy by accident. It's like
Yes.
so the key thing with Suspiria, the original one, is that like the girls in that movie are supposed to be like teenage girls. They're not supposed to be like 20 somethings. So all the lines coming that should be like teenage girls, like young girls, like 13 to like 15 sound very strange coming from adult women. And that just kind of like throws, that's part of what makes the whole thing feel
Yeah.
very strange
And
and
I
weird.
think maybe the people who are big fans of Suspiria, I think I think they missed that in the remake, honestly, because I
Mm.
think the remake, Luca Guadagnino takes most of the camp out of it. I mean, it's still slightly there in some of the delivery, but he went for much more of a body horror, like, whoa, freak you out. This is weird and hard to look at type of
Oh,
stuff in the remake.
no, that's what's fun about I didn't watch the remake, but that was what's fun about this Suspiria is that like the blood is not real blood. It's this bright technicolor goop that comes out
Yeah.
of bodies. Yes, and also
So,
Suspiria seems to have a lot more in the line of like it is really much more in the like tone and like
mhm.
almost a slow burn. That's one of the original like
Yeah,
slow
very
burn
slow
kind of
burn.
vibes, where it's like, what is happening? I don't know. The colors are pretty and the music is fun, but whereas Malignant is like has that camp factor
And
without the slow burnness. But I'm
I,
okay with
yeah,
that.
I will say I very much appreciated we got the camp right away. Like I
Yes.
knew, I at
Oh
least
my
knew what I was in for when that doctor is like, "You've been bad,
yes.
very, very bad,
Yes.
Gabriel."
As soon like first thing I was like, wait, because I was I like had turned it on because it was like a preview or something, and so I was like watering my plants, and I like came back and I was like, is this a preview or is this the movie? Oh, this is weird.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
I
this
mean,
is weird.
so we're getting people's like hands broken, and then we're getting this woman delivering these outrageous lines. It's
She's like,
time to
full
cut out
on.
the cancer.
Yes,
Like, and the way she delivered it, I mean,
good for her.
I lived for
She
her delivery.
they all seem to know what movie they're into. Like I feel like a lot of times, right? The Room is a great example, right? If we're talking about like bad movie, like some of them seem to know that they're in a bad movie, and some of them don't. And every once in a while, oh, like with Tax, that's another great example of a terrible film where like some people seem to understand what's happening, and others are completely unaware of the
Yeah,
train wreck they are a part of. But everybody in this cast seemed to be very clear on the type
very
of movie they
clear.
were making. There
Like
was
even the
not a
yells,
yes.
everything. Like
There was
Annabelle
nobody
Wallace,
who was super
who is
off
our
on
lead.
tone or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, she like the way she screamed into the
She was good. I love her every her Gabriel, no! Every single it always came out of nowhere.
that
It's also
detective
funny.
woman too.
Oh my god, what a
She
character, what a
knew.
cartoon character.
She knew what she was there for and she delivered it. She knew what the job was
Yes,
and she's
yes.
like, "Okay, I'm going to give it to you then."
I love the sister in her princess costume. That's like some ham-fisted, like, this is our innocent here.
Hi.
Yeah. I have to appreciate it. Having done a show that was intended to kind of like take on all of the horror tropes, I leaned really far into like the goofy aspects of it. I feel like this did a really good job of like leaning into not necessarily the tropes, but kind of just like leaning into more contemporary horror tropes, I guess. Like
Yeah.
and just kind of it was like a wash of camp instead of it being full on parody. It's a camp wash
Yeah.
in blood.
Like you
And
said, it's still delivering on like the gore is there for real. Like it's not it's not
mhm.
Suspiria like campy gore. No, no, no. I mean, it's gross. When they get nasty, they get nasty.
Yes, lots of blood
But
splattering everywhere.
but the line delivery, the script itself, the actors, even the camera work, again, her screaming into the camera and then the camera doing like that dramatic zoom into people's faces and stuff. He knew what he was wanting to make. And I think the more I think about it, because at first I was sitting in a kind of like, okay. But the more I think about it, the more I think I'm leaning toward really liking it. I love how over the top and ridiculous so much is.
Yeah, I think now that we talk about it more, I really appreciate the vision behind it. That it's so consistent in its tone and consistent in like what he's trying to do. It's not campy and cheesy because the director doesn't know what they're doing and has no sense of like what is scary and what is not. This director, like, you can tell he knows what he's doing in every single little bit. He like was like, nah, I want to make it a little bit goofy. I want to make it silly. And we're going to keep all this like sick action and the blood and stuff. But yeah, it's going to be a little goofy.
And you can see like every now and then, like there's this tracking shot that he does from above. That was like amazing. So she's like running through her house and we're just like following her from like this aerial view through her house as she goes from room to, and I loved it. Or like weird kind of really cool shots of like the videotape. In my reaction, I was like, oh, the children don't even know what this device is.
VHS.
They don't know what this VHS.
Larry, I didn't even think about that. That like a VHS tape is such a very antique technology to throw up there. But it's also so good and spooky too, right? Because it's always got that like, it's got the lines and that graininess. And oh yeah. Yep. Oh my God. So good.
Yeah, and so definitely the scene at the police department was my favorite, like my absolute favorite moment of the film. One, when they're in there, and then two, when the film pretty much just straight up goes action. Like when when Gabriel's fighting the police officers,
Matrix style horror monster.
It was legit Matrix. Like, see, and this is why I'm like, he has to know, because when Gabriel does like this jump, he then suddenly, for the first time in the entire film, goes into slow-mo as we see Gabriel in this trench coat flying through the air. Like, so
this like, backwards trench coat.
It's like, oh my gosh. And that scene, I loved it. The end. And then I do think there's something a little bit interesting about what happens at the end, and kind of an allegory that I think can be made to some sort of mental illness type of thing of overcoming that, and like, the whole thing there. But for the most part, it's just having fun. And James Wan, I think, is just having fun. Coming off of Aquaman, which, made $1 billion for DC, this huge comic book hit, for him to turn around and make like this crazy, campy, ridiculous horror movie. You gotta love that to a certain extent. That he was like, you know what, my next film is just gonna be batshit crazy. That's what we're going
for. Him. Good for him. I'm proud of him. I'm glad. Like I said, it's very clear that he had fun. He knew what he was doing the whole time, and like I think it is a very nuanced tone that he decided on and then carried clearly throughout the whole film, which is actually kind of impressive in and of itself, because it's really easy to lean really far into camp or really far into serious drama, especially in horror. And he really found this interesting balance that I don't know. I can't think of really any horror films that sit in quite the same space as that.
Really unique viewing experience. Like any which way you look, it's a very unique watch.
We're just talking about like I will say the makeup was also very cool. Like all the like special effects stuff. That Malignant face is terrifying. It's so gross and scary and like, what the hell? But like when he's fighting and then it's the other head on the back, like, that's so well done. It was like, but that's like I'm just imagining it.
Like I hollered, not like screamed out of fear. I hollered when we see that face on the back. Again,
turns around. See her face.
Loved it. I thought it was
underneath the little like jacket top, the collar, and it's just her eyes, and it's like it's clearly a fake face, which I appreciate. It's gonna add to the like spookiness. It makes her very like it like is it this sort of like, oh, she's just become this like weird plastic doll attachment. Oh my god. And the reverse thing is so it was so weird and inconsistent once they like revealed what the deal was. The backwards thing was like, oh, okay. Snaps the bones in one direction and then
I know
she can just unsnap them in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there are some aspects where you have to just throw it out. There's a zero logic here.
It's fine if we're accepting the existence of Gabriel, period.
But yes, the bone thing is like, girl, I know you got to be sore when you wake up in the morning. What?
We performed surgery and then we just pushed the rest inside of the skull.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. And then like the phone call, I didn't understand in the like investigation room when they're like interrogating her. Gabriel calls. Like,
yes, Gabriel has some like electrical control thing.
That's not explained. That we don't know. No. It's just there. They at least sow that seed at the very first scene.
Electrical is the same thing as radio waves. That's why he can travel through the radio, because the radio waves are electricity. It's fine. Whatever. Again, if we're just accepting the conceit of like this thing is attached and is real. Whatever. I don't need like a bunch of explanation of the rest of it, I guess. It's a fantasy world.
Yes. So again, I'm not surprised the general audiences at large are not responding as favorably. So far, critically, critics, it's doing well. And some audiences who are down with the madness are loving it.
I think I saw a friend of mine say this is like, it is engineered to be a cult classic. And I think that is a pretty accurate assessment that it, right? Because that's the thing, is that it's the sort of thing you watch and you're like, okay, there's a bunch of like eyebrow raises, and then you can talk to your friend about it afterwards and be like, remember that part? This is the thing, right? This conversation is exactly what leads to something becoming a cult classic, because then you're like, no, dude, we gotta watch Malignant. Let me just show you this film.
Honestly, the movie I wish had maybe caught on more, because I learned to love it after seeing it, because at first I was like, what the hell, is In Fabric.
That was
because
that has a similar vibe.
It has a similar vibe to Malignant. So if you liked Malignant, please go find In Fabric to watch, because once again, in that third
madness,
it just goes wild, but it is so good.
You liked Malignant and Suspiria,
you will love
right in the middle. I think it probably leans a little more Suspiria, but I think
a slow burn. Like In Fabric is a slow burn, but it gives you these campy, ridiculous moments throughout that you just have to stand. Like there's no choice. Particularly that woman who works at the designer store.
Her hair
is amazing, and she should be a cultural icon at this point. But I feel like that's just one that was, it didn't have the big director behind it, so it didn't have the big release, so not enough people saw it, and it never caught. Whereas this, it had the HBO Max release. Like it has a wide enough release that enough people are going to see it that love it and are going to be like, holy shit, this is batshit crazy and I love it.
I have to say, I'm a big fan of this HBO direct to streaming thing. I like having the option of going to see things in a movie theater, but I'm not going to lie, I really like being able to sit down and watch a movie like whenever I feel like it. It's not even about a movie ticket thing. It's literally, I just like, I have a lot of shit to do, and if I have to wait for a tow truck at 11 o'clock at night, I can sit and be like, I guess I'll watch this movie now while I'm waiting here, and then I can just do it then. I'm a big fan of it, and I hope they continue to do it. I can't quite understand the business economics of it realistically. I don't quite understand how they can afford to make films that go straight to their
straight to the service, because HBO Max has not seen the bump. Like they're nowhere near Disney or the big Netflix, obviously they're nowhere near them still. And part of that, sidestep, part of that is because their rollout was absolutely dreadful. HBO Max's rollout was terrible. It took a months and months and months to be able to get onto Roku and stuff. So people were like, what the hell? They didn't sync it. So there was still HBO Max, HBO Go, HBO
Oh
Now.
yeah, that was
So
weird.
they didn't sync them together, so there was just one account. I mean, and then the way that they didn't have anything new when they first opened, like at least Disney, yeah, they're a nostalgia property, but they had like The Mandalorian ready to go when they launched.
And
HBO Max
Milan.
had nothing. HBO Max had nothing to offer the kids when they signed up, just the old stuff. So you're like, oh, okay, no new series. Finally, they're getting there, and they made this big move, obviously, in 2021 to be like, hey, here's why you should sign up for our service, because you'll get to watch movies in theaters right now at your house if you want to. And that's kind of been their big selling point, honestly, over the
I'm here
past
for it,
year.
man. Yeah, I wonder how much of it is just because of the pandemic and how much of it was like anticipated and how much of it is like they looked at the pandemic and saw what happened there and they were like, let's just roll with this. And then they've
I'm
developed
pretty
a
sure it's
strategy around
mostly pandemic, because I think they're planning to go back to theater only in 2022. So
summer.
there's that.
Give
But
me more. Give me the option. I think it's totally reasonable because they take it off. They give you like a month to watch it, and then they're like, "Okay, now you're done. Go see
what
it."
I've noticed, because obviously I follow the box office quite heavily all the time, what I've noticed is it doesn't hurt opening weekends for established properties. So stuff like Godzilla vs. Kong, stuff like Mortal Kombat, all of those did really well their opening weekends still. They open big, but then they have a hard fall. And I
Yeah,
think that's because
people watch
it
it at home.
it starts to become the at-home thing. But even Disney has seen a hard fall, but that's also been with their
Mhm.
premium access thing.
They
So
also don't. Well, and I'm not paying for that goddamn premium access.
we'll
Absolutely
rather go to the
not.
theater. Like I'll just go to the
No,
movie
yeah.
theater
If
to
I
watch
want the
those
premium
films.
experience, I'm gonna get the premium experience.
Yeah.
Like, or wait. Those are the two
Well, yes.
options. I'm not gonna. But yeah. I don't know. I think my question about the Kong versus the Mortal Kombat is it's also those are movies that are like better suited for a big screen. So I wonder how much of it is that, right? Like In the Heights is lovely, but you don't need a giant screen to enjoy it. Same thing with Malignant. You don't need a giant screen to enjoy Malignant. You can enjoy it on your normal big screen at home. So I wonder how much of it is that. I hope that they continue, but you're
excited. I am seeing Malignant in the theater here soon with my grandma. So we're gonna go see it.
grandma loves the horror films.
So with these ones, like this upcoming weekend, I'll be watching Cry Macho. But it's the new Clint Eastwood movie. It's also going to be on HBO Max. So I'm doing reactions to all of these HBO Max movies. So I'll be watching it. But then, since I have to be by myself to watch it, then I take my grandma and we go watch the movies at the theater, or here, like we did Reminiscence, which one, I'm glad I got to watch at home. So there you go. But yeah, so James Wan, he's up there certainly as one of the modern day like horror icons for people. First, obviously, his big one, Saw. So he created the short, and then they worked it into a full-fledged motion picture.
Yeah.
And Saw is responsible for pretty much an entire subgenre of horror in the quote-unquote torture porn was birthed out of Saw.
Yeah, and you know what? I gotta give it up for him that he only directed the first like what two, and
only
then when
one
they were like,
he produced, but it is only the first one. Somebody gave us wrong information at our table. It's only the first one.
Well, great, and that so he only did the first one, and then he was like, "Nah, man, I'm not gonna like
good.
drive my property into the ground. I'm good. You have fun."
Yeah,
I'm sure. I like good for him. I'm sure he made money off of every single movie, but like.
and of course that is still going. We got a new based on Saw film this year for Spiral.
I think it's a good Saw is well what really turned into Saw was a little bit like the original Saw was more psychological, whereas it seems like the sequels were more like murder Rube Goldberg machine.
It was what they just tried to come up with the craziest contraptions for the Saw jigsaw puzzles.
It was, it was Rube Goldberg murder.
Yeah. And like, so the first one
this thing falls and then this thing falls and then your head comes off.
I really appreciated Saw just from a ideology standpoint. Is it tried to at least give like this ideology behind vigilantism, kind
Sure.
of this man is getting horrible people, trapping them in a uh, place and telling them you have to lose something so that you can understand the importance of life. Grim, you don't want that to happen to people, but at least it had like a idea behind it, some sort of new kind of
It does
basis.
what good horror does best, which is take like a piece of human philosophy and just like explore the deepest, darkest versions of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a reason that Saw spun off a million sequels, but
That gore, there's lots of gore always in all of the Saw films.
yeah, um, yes,
But then he went small still with Dead Silence with the creepy like puppet, and then Death Sentence before he went with Insidious. His first time teaming up with Patrick Wilson, which he loves Patrick Wilson. They team up
we
quite a
all
bit.
love Patrick Wilson. He is a
Yes.
gem. Everybody
So
look up the Star Spangled Banner, sung by Patrick Wilson.
wait, so you haven't seen Insidious?
I have not seen Insidious.
Okay, so in many ways, it's similar to kind of the first Conjuring setup, if you will. It's supernatural, and you go in this one though, you kind of go into the other supernatural plane, and it's a gift Patrick Wilson has had. And I think Insidious is a lot of fun. Like I said, it starts off pretty tense type of jump scare horror, and then that third act we go into that realm. We get like the devil, this like really weird absurd design for the devil, but it's like vibrant red face, so again
So
he
like
really
are we
leaned
talking
into it.
like Tim Curry and Legend level devil or
No, it's more 2D. It's like a stylized ish type of, but it's a little bit
live
ridiculous.
reaction to the wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a ridiculous over the top design.
Like Darth Maul?
No,
What's
Darth
happening?
Maul. Yeah, it's like very
Ah,
Darth Maul-esque. And the third act is like that. In general, we got Lin Shaye, who is kind of a horror icon in general, who's been the staple of the Insidious films. But he also did Chapter 2, which was fun, but not as good. And then he left that and it just fell off a cliff. Insidious just turned into a hot mess after he left. But then, of course, we got The Conjuring in 2013, the next one you saw after Saw of
yeah.
his.
And I have to say I am a sucker for a ghost story. Those are the ones that like scare me. And that's a scary ghost story. Conjuring was well done.
It's
I also
just this,
really, yeah, go ahead.
it's like a master class. So we mentioned it. And that's what I think turning to The Conjuring is like a pure masterclass in how to build horror tension, like how to build atmosphere in the most effective ways for a horror
Snap the
film.
rubber band, pull it, and then
You just
bam, just the right
you play these games. So we have like the clapping game going on throughout this house, which is just like
That's it right up.
have you like literally just so tensed up. So then you get that amazing scene where the mom has like her stupid little lighter and those hands like clap next to her, and you're like, oh my God. But it's just in this house, it builds up that tension so well. Of course, we talked about they are much better than the Warrens deserve. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are amazing, and they deliver these great performances and give so much to them.
I do also have a soft spot for Lily Taylor. Apparently, The Haunting is a terrible movie. I had no idea.
I had no
Loved
idea either.
when it originally came out.
Again, we've talked about her plenty. I was already blinded by Catherine Zeta-Jones in
Right.
The Haunting,
Right.
and then yeah, Lily Taylor, everything. I also Liam Neeson's in it. Yeah, I loved.
I feel like
Nobody else liked it, but I loved it.
great. You and me, Larry, we're
Yeah.
like, I like. I don't know why people don't like it. It's scary. It's tense. Weird.
Yeah.
You know what it is, Larry? It's campy. It knows what it is. It knows what it is.
Yes. Yeah, so The Conjuring, I think all of the films, any sort of, it's so again chasing the Exorcist, which has not been able to really successfully be replicated. It's just this weird phenomenon that happened, and it came out at the perfect time. But finding a way to make the possession portion not like funny, not
Yeah.
ridiculous. When you have these people like flying around and writhing
After
and
decades of Exorcist parodies, it's a little hard, right?
it's
We're all
hard.
here with the puke and the head spinning and the
And part of it is just how much of that is practical. I think that's what they don't understand. Is so much of The Exorcist is obviously practical. They didn't have all these CGI to rely on. So this vile mess that you're watching on screen is like, all right. And part of it is like the script, just what they have. I mean, and the performance of Linda Blair. Everything about The Exorcist was like a perfect storm. And then you get the horror of the set itself, the like cursed set of The Exorcist. It's perfect. Like everything about it just culminated to this perfect storm of a horror film.
horror films. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this I think does a good enough job. Is yes, we get into the big exorcisty stuff and like the body horror stuff, but I think it keeps it in that sweet spot of like, oh, it's gross and you're still in it and you care about the characters. That's another thing is you have to care in an exorcism film about the people being terrorized by this entity. And I think they do a good job of having you like get involved in this family.
Mhm.
But then he goes on to Insidious Chapter 2, as I mentioned before, and we also have The Conjuring 2, and you have not seen that sequel, correct?
Nope.
It is arguably right on par with that first film. I think it is really good. It introduces us to the nun in one of the most horrifying sequences ever. Oh, so good.
Check it out.
Yeah, so definitely check that one out. Then we
So
have Furious 7.
just so everybody knows, I spend one day. I watch a horror movie per day in October, basically.
So The Conjuring 2 is on the list this year, Ren,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
along with the entire Halloween franchise. But
Grim is like all about The Conjuring right
yeah,
now.
he's excited.
Would you like to? Great. He's enthusiastic about Halloween, aren't we all?
But yes, between his two sequels of Insidious Chapter 2 and The Conjuring 2, James Wan like forays into big budget live action, just action with Furious 7. A huge departure up to his career. I mean, it's been all horror. And then he's like, you know what? Yes, I'll do Furious 7 with you, Universal.
We'll just throw it out there right now. Ren has not seen even one Fast and Furious film because why? Apparently, there's lots of people that have good reasons why I should. I don't know if I think they're good reasons, but
it's just so shocking you didn't even watch the first one when it came out.
Well, as I explained, the first one came out and then I missed it, and then by then, like 3 more had come out, and I was like, oh no, I'm not jumping on this hot mess train.
But Furious 7 is great. It is a very fun. Once again, he does. I think maybe that's something we don't credit him enough for because it's not really present in the Conjuring films, and that's kind of become a staple of his. Furious 7 as well is one of those films that really goes ham. Like this is one of those films that just cars literally jump from one building to the next. Like we have all of the craziness in Furious 7 and it's done well. Whereas 8 and 9 take that and don't know how to execute it well enough. So it just turns stupid.
That's pretty cool if you think about it. That he seems to have a pretty broad understanding of like it. There, I don't think I'm a little bit. I'm a little bit skeptical of Chloe Zhao's Eternals film because as a director, the only thing I've experienced are these very slow, very meticulous, very kind of like deliberate films. And I don't know if that's going to translate to a Marvel film, to a superhero film. It absolutely could. She could absolutely be one of those directors that is like multi-talented and knows how to like pace things out, even if she goes from doing like very thoughtful, deep, introspective indie films straight into like do a big action blockbuster. And of course she has to do an awesome job because otherwise we're all screwed. By we I mean the women, because
she's a woman of color, so if she bombs this Marvel movie, she's in trouble.
We won't be able to, it doesn't matter. You can't point to all of the
No,
successful ones
no,
or all of the men who bombed. It won't matter. But anyways,
no.
it does seem in terms of James Wan, he's got a pretty broad understanding of like action and horror. And like those are two very different elements. Like knowing how to build tension and successfully execute like genuinely scary horror is super different from knowing how to just like entertain people with shit flying across the screen.
And of course, with Furious 7 too, he had like the extra pressure, which we're now getting in Marvel, though their pressure is a little bit different. But Paul Walker died while Furious 7 was still shooting. So he had the task of wrapping up Paul Walker's character in some sort of way that like satisfied people who had watched it for 7 movies at this point. And
Good.
that tribute at the end is gorgeous. It's amazing. I think he did a fantastic job of doing that as well. So Furious 7, I think also displays, and we'll talk about Aquaman here in a second, and Malignant, and Insidious, as I mentioned before. He has that like camp to him. He likes to insert it. Like I said, we lost track of that because The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2 don't have much of that, and that's kind of his main thing. But all of the rest of the stuff he does almost has like this edge of camp, and then he just went full for it and like. But you have seen Aquaman.
I have seen Aquaman. Well, I'm like talking about camp, right? Like I feel like Aquaman, he did a much better job with the camp in Malignant
Oh
in
yeah,
like weaving it into his story, whereas Aquaman, it just felt weird. I think
he
there's also
tried.
something I don't know if it's necessarily all his fault. It's just it felt very out of place also just in that DC universe. I don't think the script was very good. It
Part
seemed
of it
like
you have to wonder with the superhero films like Aquaman, how much did Warner Brothers mess with? Like, did he? Watching Malignant, you think maybe he wanted to go full on balls to the wall crazy, and Warner Brothers was like, "We need to pull this back and do this."
yeah, Aquaman also felt like disjointed in a way that makes it seem like chunks of script were taken out. So I don't necessarily think that is anybody's fault. I mean, when I watched Aquaman, it was like I got like a list of like options. This is what me and my husband do. I recommend it to everyone who has the problem of like, what do we watch tonight? There's 2 of us, and we take turns. One person picks 5 movies, and the other person picks one movie from those 5. That is the best way to lay it out because you've decreased your choices of infinite streaming services down to 5 that one person is perfectly content watching, and then one person has to make a final decision. Anyways, I made the final decision to watch Aquaman because I was like, you know what? I am happy to watch a sexy, sexy man just move around on screen for 2 hours. I'm down for it. But yeah, I think as a film, it's I don't know. It's DC. They have it also doesn't quite fit into the DC world, right? It's not like dark and like it's not trying to be dark and gritty the way that all the other ones are, except for Wonder.
Especially when of course, Aquaman was introduced in Justice League
Right,
before his film. That
right,
was
and
kind
he's
of
like fun, which I think is a very good. As that's, oh my God, what's his name? I know
Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa. Jason Momoa. I, he actually does very well as like fun and cute. I think he intrinsically as a human being seems to be very like fun and cute, right? He's like excited about all his fans. He's really down to like do those jokey like pictures with everyone. So I think that definitely shone through in Aquaman. Yeah, my
It
main
just
gripe
the
with Aquaman
script.
the nonsense. It just
It's
didn't like
just the
pull him.
script was too much. It's such a bloated script full of so much. We have these 2 villains who do not connect to each other at all
Also, why do
randomly.
you have two? Pick one.
Like we have Patrick Wilson again, once again back in a James Wan film, Down Under the Sea as his like stepbrother trying to take over, and then we have Black Manta up on the top who's mad because his father died and hates Aquaman, and so every time he comes up to the surface, he has to fight Black Manta, and then he has to go down and deal with it. It's too much, and then we have all this politics and the mom, Nicole Kidman, leaves for most of the movie, but she's still alive and randomly shows up. Yeah. It's a
Yes.
lot. It just is a lot in that script. If they had streamlined it, I think Aquaman could have been a really fun film. But as it is, it's just a lot.
You kind of like need Aquaman to be a fun film. It's Aquaman, right? Like he's the dorkiest of
Yeah.
the superheroes. I
Yeah.
mean, you've done quite a bit to cool up the factor by casting Jason Momoa as
Yes.
your Aquaman
He
for
did
sure.
half the work right
Yes.
there.
But I don't know. It feels like a missed opportunity because I think if DC was not in that mode of like we're making dark and gritty superhero films, which is something we talked about on our last podcast, we're very serious. Like, don't make a fucking Aquaman movie because like
Yeah.
I think that could have been a really really fun, entertaining like comic book movie if it had been approached from that. If you'd let James Wan approach it from that angle, I would love to see James Wan direct like he's allowed to do whatever campy silliness he wants. Make it a cartoon, please. Make it a live action cartoon. I'm down for it.
I guess maybe they will, since the first one was so successful. They let him make this. Of
Also,
course,
the DC does not seem to be opposed to. We're sorry. We messed it up. We'll do it again. We're gonna do it again. We're just gonna do it again. Don't you worry about the last one. We're gonna kind of pretend it exists, but not really.
well, I mean, they did just let Patty Jenkins do whatever the hell whatever that script was in Wonder Woman 1984. So I mean, they're not opposed to
Find a balance, folks.
they're not opposed to being like, you did that first movie for us that was successful and we loved it, so the second movie will just not even check in on you and see what the hell's happening. So we'll see, maybe
send that script to an editor. Jesus.
But he is coming back for Insidious: The Dark Realm as a co-director. So hopefully he can revitalize that series.
You know who his co-director
I
is?
don't. I know. I didn't even know it was being co-directed, honestly.
I always find the concept of co-directing very strange because the idea,
especially in live action, it's a common practice in animation.
Yes, because
it makes more sense in animation because you're dealing with. In realistic, I mean, if somebody's not like artiste, but they're a good director, maybe you have a director who's more focused on the art side and a director more focused on performance and the script or something. I don't know.
Yes, I just think that it is. Wait, sorry, not Insidious 3.
No, Insidious: The Dark Realm. So it's Insidious. I think it's like 5 or 6.
Jeez.
Yeah, no, there's.
Wow, I blinked and there was 7 more.
It's 3. Creative director is Roman Wannell, Adam Robitel, and James Wan. So there's technically 3 directors. We'll see. That makes me super nervous. That instilled no confidence in me that there are technically 3 directors on this thing.
So the concept of a director, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so I'm a sidebar rant real quick. Concept of a director is that you have one unifying vision. I have worked in collaborative art making, performance, creation processes many, many times. You can absolutely work collaboratively, but if you don't have one person who is your director and makes the final decisions on things, it can be a hot mess. Even when I've tried to be like, we don't need a director, if I'm not there to say this is the final decision, people can sit and argue about things forever. And like, I guess it might be possible for you to separate it out and be like, okay, so this person is going to handle this part, this person's going to handle this part, and this person's going to handle this part. And I guess like if you have 3, I hope that this is what they're doing. They're going to have one that's handling one part, one that's handling the other part, and then one that's in the middle to merge those 2 together. But otherwise, that just sounds like a recipe for a problem, a big old problem. There's a reason that like shows, even though they have lots of different directors, have a showrunner. There's a different director on every episode, but there's one person who has that unifying vision to make sure the whole thing roughly makes sense from beginning to end. Anyways, that was my rant on directing, and we can continue on.
And then his only other project, he looks like he has a TV series that he's directing, all 8 episodes of Archive 81. I don't know anything about it. Cool. And then we have Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So he is returning for the Aquaman sequel.
See how it goes.
Red. You are a hot mess, Red.
Listen, it can either go, I don't know, it can go many different ways, right? It could be bad like the first one, where it's just like kind of a not coherent mess. They could let him go mad and it's like awesome, or they could let him go mad and it's Wonder Woman 1984. And
you're like, what the hell? Well, the script is
editing, guys, editing. What are you even doing?
But yes,
I have a little bit more faith in James Wan, having seen Malignant, that when he goes ham, he knows how to keep it consistent and make it not mad.
Like this.
Like, it was silly, but it made sense from beginning to end. Like it was like there's like a little like reality things that you're like, I don't think that's how that works in reality, but like at least the storyline was like, oh yeah, okay, great. It's sure fantasy, horror, magic, great. But it like yes, it wasn't just a hot.
We've seen him go ham. So at least now we're like, okay, this is him just like throwing it at the wall and saying, let's go.
I think it's reasonable to expect that he won't fuck it up.
RuPaul just tied the most Emmy wins for a person of color tonight. So there's that. If RuPaul wins for best reality competition next week, he becomes the winningest person of color in Emmy history.
Is Oprah the other one?
No, it's like it was a cinematographer actually.
Oh.
So
I'm uncomfortable with the fact that RuPaul has more Emmys than Oprah.
It's very strange.
Much as
No, it's primetime Emmys. Sorry. Oprah was obviously daytime Emmys, so they're not in the same category.
Great. Also, awards shows are garbage, and the Emmys especially so. Not as bad as the Golden Globes. Those ones are garbage. Those ones are hot.
And we don't have to deal with them next year because they pretty much got canceled at least for a year to restructure and rework out their trash.
Structure? Okay, guys, whatever.
We'll see. Yeah. Well, pretty much the TV, ABC or whoever airs them, dropped them and all of their rights. So they're just floating.
Man.
And yeah. So all of that great racism that came out.
Dying. I mean, okay. We can have a conversation about that later. There's good things about award shows and there's not so good things.
Award season is right around the corner, so we'll definitely be getting into awards talk. We'll definitely be covering the Oscars in shapes and forms, probably discussing the Best Picture nominees, because we both watch them all every year at this point. So
last year was the easiest because they were like all there streaming. I only had to like go out and see one of them.
It was a good and easy year last year because it was a pandemic streaming year.
Especially because they just keep adding more to the category. Like, here's 10 films you need to see in the next 3 months.
Go.
Knock yourself out.
But one genre who won't be there, horror. One genre that never finds its way.
Hasn't a horror film won Best Picture before? I'm sure, like, what didn't, like...
The Silence of the Lambs is the only horror film to win Best Picture.
Well, there's your key. You just got to put Anthony Hopkins.
Win. Yeah. It's been 20 years, 30 years since a horror film, and the only horror film. Though others have won, like, I believe Linda Blair, or was it... oh, God, I'm blanking on the mom's name from The Exorcist. The actress that plays the mom. Oh God, Ellen Burstyn. She at least was nominated. I don't know if she won, but like they'll get nominations every now and then you get Lupita Nyong'o doing amazing transformative work, and the Academy pretends they didn't see it. So
Toni Collette get nominated for
nope. Toni Collette, amazing work.
That was the thing that everybody thought she should have gotten nominated.
Yeah, everybody was screaming for those two women to get nominated, and the Academy's like, nah, we're good. Thanks.
What happens? That's the problem with the Academy Awards. You get this group of people that all has the same group think. You just have the same type of movie snob that says superhero films don't count as film, animation is for kids, and horror film is just schlock. Yeah. So I have exactly these many things that I'm willing to even entertain as,
and even
even watch.
Even them, with their weirdness, up until Parasite, were also like foreign films. We'll give them a consolation prize, but they can't win Best
They
Picture.
get their own
Yeah.
category.
Okay.
Separate but equal.
I think animation and documentaries too. God forbid one of those get recognized as the best picture of the year. No, no, no. They can only win their category.
Didn't they add it specifically because Beauty and the Beast got added to Best Picture and people were
So
like,
they
what? Children's film? Best Picture? We better create a separate one.
just got so
So Disney and Pixar can win every year.
yeah, you know.
It's what? What's
Yeah.
even the at that problem? Anyways, we've gotten way off track on James Wan.
But James Wan, I'm sorry, man. You're great at horror. You're great at action. Two categories the Academy won't recognize, but we recognize you as fans.
Yes, and any artist worth their salt doesn't give a crap about the awards. They care about making the art and whether or not their audiences like it. And if you're an artist who doesn't care if your audience likes it or not, well, you're probably not a very good artist. That was with Snark for the evening.
There you go. And listen, we as people, we're on board. Not everyone's on board with your vision in this Malignant because it is pretty batshit crazy in some aspects. But we like the
Just
crazy.
don't get it, James. We get it. We get it.
We understand what you were going for, and we appreciated
and
it.
we accept it.
We accept it. Perfect. Well, that was our review for Malignant and our discussion of the James Wan filmography. Hopefully, you all enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please make sure that you are following us on whatever platform it is that you are listening to us on. Also, if you are listening on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave us a rating and a review. It greatly helps us in visibility when it comes to finding an audience for our little podcast here. So we will love you at least for the moment. Ren, where can the folks find you to follow you specifically?
So first of all, you should check out my website, audaciously.com, because if you like horror, you're going to enjoy our Halloween show coming up, Lady Killers, Masquerade of Murder, especially if you like true crime. Anyways, that's the first place you should look for me. I will be playing Elizabeth Bathory in that show. Then if you just want to harass me personally, you can go to my Twitter, Ren Manley, or my Instagram at RennyPoo13.
Perfect. And you can find me at ChiliBoyYT on Twitter, as well as Chili Boy Productions on both Instagram and YouTube, where our podcast Visual Edition is hosted. It's also a great place to leave all your comments directly for the podcast. Also, make sure to follow us at Cinema Snarks on Twitter and Instagram. We just ran a poll, and you all decided that Iron Man was your favorite superhero origin story film.
I think you all are right.
There was lots of great answers. Batman Begins was very close, but we just to vote on these fun polls. We'll have some all the time. Make sure to be following us. So thanks for listening to the Snark with us this week, and we can't wait to tell you how we feel yet again next time. Bye.